Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back to another edition of the Dogland Podcast. I am your host, Jackson McCurry, and on today's episode, Jack Duffin is back in the studio with us. Jack, how's everything going, bud?
I'm good. No, ticking along. It's an exciting time. That there's just so much going on, and it hasn't even started yet, free agency. So it's, for me, one of the most fun 3 days in the NFL. I get more excited about that than even the draft. It's just absolute carnage. So it's great fun.
Absolutely. I mean, we are, about 3 weeks away from the start of the league year. There's still rumors going around, trade rumors, free agency rumors. Like, things are starting to heat up. This weekend would be the combine, which would have generated a ton of rumors, but there is no combine, unfortunately, this year. But there's still plenty to talk about. We're going to talk about some Brown stuff, and then we will dive into some of the big NFL news going on right now, involving the quarterback position. And then we do have a couple mailbag questions. I threw it out there on Twitter, and we did get a couple, so we'll dive into those at the end. But, Jack, when it comes to the Browns right now, like, the real talk at this point is just waiting on J.J. Watt and wondering when he's going to make his decision. Is he going to come to the Browns? Is he going to go somewhere else? There was some news this week. John Clayton was on Pittsburgh Sports Talk, and there was a tweet, and I forget who said it. They said that John Clayton said that the Browns were out of the running. And then John Clayton had to come on Twitter and verify that he said, no, I didn't say that. People are taking it out of context, which, wow, shocker, that actually happens on social media. But the Browns are still in it, but we're getting more clarity as to who's involved. The Titans are involved, the Packers, the Buffalo Bills. It sounds like Pittsburgh's out of the running, which makes sense. That's been reported that JJ doesn't want to join his brothers in Pittsburgh, plus financially they really can't do it. But it seems like we're down to 4 teams, and they're all really good teams. They're all teams that JJ Watt can win a Super Bowl with, and he can also get his money.
Yeah, no, it's certainly the question that is the most exciting thing, because most of these free agents officially can't talk to teams yet. They're obviously doing it, but hey, it's not stuff that's obviously flying around and that sort of everything going on. I've said all off season before he was released, it always felt like me he's going to the Packers. At the end of the day, if you're chasing a ring, why would you look anywhere else other than the NFC? It's not a crowded field over there. You've got Tampa Bay, you've got the Packers, and I think for me it's probably about it in terms of the next year. Certainly the next year, maybe the next 2. If you're looking at the AFC, you've got Kansas City by far the favourites, quite rightly. But you've got a field there where, you've got the Browns. I'm not a fan of them, but you've got like the Ravens, you've got the Titans, you've got the Bills. You've just got so many teams that are really good, and what goes on there. So naturally looking, if you're looking for a ring, you go to the conference with the less competing teams. Just seems like the sensible thing to do. But no, I think what lots of fans, they want to click next day on Madden and players have signed and everything's done. But there's very few star players in the NFL that ever get a chance to test free agency. And I mean, ever. This is quite unique for players. The vast majority of players will never get the chance to ever even do that. Their bodies are so broken by the time they go and retire that even playing for another team as a starter is long gone by that point. And it's something that you want to enjoy. And you're not just like, hey, I'm moving there and playing for that team. You're uprooting your family. You've got all of that knock-on impact. Yeah, it might only be for 2 years and you can go back somewhere else, but there is a lot to consider. So, especially when there's no hurry in time. Obviously, if it was released on the 16th of March, then he'd have to hurry up and decide because he's got a day and teams want to go a different direction if he's waiting. But quite frankly, he's got another 2 weeks before he needs to make up his mind. And yeah, what will be will be. I think the Browns are in the running, but I don't think they're that desperate. Obviously, I don't know if we're going to touch on, there was the report of the 15 to 16 million that just made me laugh my head off.
Yeah, we actually were going to get right to that next. Diana Rossini was the one to report it from ESPN yesterday. She said that he's received several offers and the best offer he's received is 15 to 16 million per year. Now, people automatically assume that that's 15 to 16 million guaranteed. This isn't like the MLB. This isn't like the NBA where everything's straight guaranteed money. And I even tweeted it out. I said, everybody's on edge about the price tag for Watt. First of all, he might not go to the highest bidder. I mean, you think back to last year, Jadeveon Clowney, the Browns were offering him $17 million a year, and he wound up going to Tennessee, and I think it was cheaper than that. And also, the $15 to $16 million per year could be a deal where the Browns or any team would give him like 10 to 12 million base salary, and then the other 4 to 6 million could be incentive. Like, it's not straight 16 million guaranteed, but Mary Kay reported it a week or two ago that he's interested in the Browns, as he's interested with probably any team, because of money, and the Browns have money that they can give him, but also he's looking for a place where he can go win a Super Bowl. Now, any of the teams mentioned so far are all viable Super Bowl contenders. We talked about how stacked the AFC is with, the Titans, the Bills, the Browns among the teams that are going to be contenders next year. And then you look at Green Bay, who was just in the NFC title game. They're not far away. And if you add a guy like J.J. Watt to what already a solid front seven for Green Bay, I mean, that would give them a viable shot to try to dethrone Tampa in 2021.
Yeah, and sort of just to touch on that sort of guarantees and incentives and what it looks like, it's massive because, say the deal's 12 million, a mixture of base salary, signing bonus, and then you got 3 million of incentives. Hey, 1 million can be split across the 16, 17 games. For each game, you get X amount of money. Then you can have a sack bonus of going, hey, you get 3 sacks, you get 250,000, you get 6 sacks, you get $500,000, you get 9 sacks will give you 750,000, you get 12 sacks will give you the mil, so that can bring you up to 2 mil, and then you could do another mil on, hey, we'll give you 250,000 if we make the playoffs, we'll give you sort of maybe another 250,000 if we make it to the championship round. We'll give you another 200, and then another sort of $500,000 if we win the Super Bowl. That sort of thing of just going, hey, it's not easy stuff to go out there and do, but those are the goals. And quite frankly, if you get there, then you can fudge the money. I don't think any team's going to be that worried, even if it's $1 million. If he wins the Super Bowl, that once you win the Super Bowl, we can cut a dude, save us $1 million. That's not going to be a problem. We'll be too busy out there celebrating to really care that some dude who was making $3 million got cut because we needed to free up some money to pay JJ Watt a Super Bowl bonus. So yeah, lots is sort of overhyped of, why didn't they trade for him if they want to pay that? Well, he's on $17.5 million. You're asking him to take a pay cut down to 12. With incentives, he's probably going to earn, say, 2 of it, so it gets him up to maybe 14. But yeah, it's just fast. And the other part is that offer might have come from the Jaguars, the Jets, and then he's like, I ain't going there. And the actual offers are around the 13, 14 where we sort of expect it to be, and it's not that crazy. If we're expecting it to be around 13 and the final offer's 15 because 4 teams are really desperate, it's a couple of million. It's not like he's been overpaid by $5 million a year.
Right. I mean, there is teams with a buttload of cap space. The one team that no one's really talking about is the Colts. I feel like they're in a really good position with cap space, even after taking on Carson Wentz. Like, people are kind of sleeping on them as a potential option for J.J. Watt. I don't know if he's and just because I just thought of it, AFC South. Like, he'll play Houston twice a year. Like, he could get revenge on the team that, kind of ruined his shot at winning a Super Bowl, because whatever's going on in that front office right now is totally fascinating. So, and the Patriots, I mean, they don't have a quarterback right now, but we know how good Belichick is. Like, if he gets a quarterback there, add J.J. Watt as a situational pass rusher, like, there is teams that they're not talking about. And of course, they're saying there's a dozen or so teams in. It feels like there's only 4 legit options for them, but there's tons of options there in terms of money. It's just a matter of will those teams have a viable QB option that could compete for a Super Bowl to entice Watt to go there?
Yeah, and I think that's probably what rolls the Colts out. If you've got a choice of Aaron Rodgers, that's sort of tier one. Then you've got your sort of Ryan Tannehill, Josh Allen, Baker. That's sort of the tier two. And then, hey, if you're stacking sort of teams that are interested in tiers, you've got your Carson Wentz sort of in that, I'd say, third tier. So if he's looking to win, he's going to want the best quarterback. And for me, it's Aaron Rodgers that's on the market. And the other crazy team that hasn't really been mentioned much, but would make sense, is Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If they're struggling to get any sort of deal done with Shaq Barrett, why not? And they haven't been thrown out there. They haven't been discussed, but it wouldn't be a bad one. If you want to go win a ring, go to a team that just won rings, and be a part of that. So, if they can't get a deal done with Shaq Barrett, why don't you go and sign JJ Watt? And, like for like replacement is 2 years, and, that team's probably going to fall apart in a year or two's time because they're spending so much money. They're going to have to do some change to the way they structure deals. But hey, it allows you to keep the ball rolling with a really, really good team.
Absolutely. I'm surprised Tampa's not mentioned more. They have guys, Mike Evans, willing to restructure his deal. They're talking about a Tom Brady extension. So obviously he wants to play a few more years, and that could lower his cap number and provide more flexibility. They have $13 million in cap space. So, I mean, if Watt is serious about winning and he wants to go to Tampa, I think they would definitely make it work. Plus, him and Jason Pierre-Paul, even though they are, seasoned veterans on the backside of their career, they still can disrupt the pocket and cause havoc for quarterbacks. So it's definitely going to be fascinating to see when Watt makes the decision and where he ultimately goes. Moving forward, we talked about, some of the big news in the NFL this week, and it was like Thursday was the big day because there was some bombshells that came out, and I think the biggest one was Russell Wilson. There's an article from The Athletic talking about, his unhappiness with the organization, how, he's not getting more of a say in personnel, how he stormed out of a meeting with coaches last year before a game. It sounds like Russell Wilson isn't happy. Now, ESPN is reporting that he didn't ask for a trade, but his agent told ESPN that he told the Seattle Seahawks, if you do want to trade him, Russell Wilson has a no-trade clause, but there's a list of teams he wants to go to. He'd want to go to the Chicago Bears, the Dallas Cowboys, the New Orleans Saints, and there is another team escaping me right now.
You keep talking and I'll quickly find it.
Yeah, but with Russell Wilson, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He, it's clear, he talked publicly about how he wants them to give him more of a say in personnel in terms of the offensive line.
It's Raiders.
The Raiders, yeah. The Raiders were the other team. That's right. But, he's tired of the abuse he takes, which as a mobile quarterback, you're setting yourself up to be more vulnerable to take hits. And he's taken 400 sacks throughout his career. We're talking about this, Jack, it'd be like you and me saying, I'm happy where I'm at with my current job, but, if I'm going to leave, these are the places I'm going to go to. So, and this is how much they're offering me. You need to give me a reason to stay. But Russell Wilson, I don't know if he'd get traded this offseason, but this is another potential domino in the quarterback carousel that Adam Schefter referred to this offseason about all the types of movement. If he goes, becomes available on the market and ends up getting traded, that would send major shockwaves throughout the NFL.
Yeah, so sort of the list was a bit random. It made no logical sense of how did you come to the conclusion of those four teams. And one thing PFF Brad put out there is there's three of those teams that have got strong links and people he knows. So you've got Dallas Cowboys, you've got the former Seahawks DC Dan Quinn, is their new DC. The Raiders, new DC is former Seahawks DC Gus Bradley. The Saints DB's coach is former Seahawks DC Chris Richard. And then Brad's sort of suggestion, he's a Chicago fan, so would absolutely love him, but he put best city on the planet, huge market, an easy path to becoming the most loved QB the team has ever had. And he sort of referenced that just by signing for the team and getting on the plane, he would automatically become the number one quarterback in in Chicago Bears history, just because it's not been great, especially in recent times. To go from the biscuit to Russell Wilson is let's just say an insane change for any team. So he's got 4 teams there, and obviously, yeah, as a player and as a brand, there's no better team if you want sort of to have a career after football. If you want sort of the marketing, the extra money you're going to make in commercials, you want to go to the Dallas Cowboys. That's not a slight on other teams. That is the most marketable team in America. If you want to get on adverts, you want to be playing for one of the 32 teams, it's naturally the Dallas Cowboys. It's just the way it is. That would make sense. But yeah, I'd say the other teams say there's some good defenses there. He might have that sort of gut feeling, hey, I won the Super Bowl when we had a really good defense. I want a good defense. Or it could just be, hey, there are areas where he goes, actually, I'd like to live there. And it could be as simple as that and have nothing to do with what happens on the field. It's an interesting one, but he's not moving this year. We can just look at his contract. If they traded him this off season or any point this season, there's a 39 million dead cap. That would be, he's paid 32 million if he stays. So it's a massive, massive loss for the team. So yeah, I'd put it out your mind this year. I think it's more of a cry for help rather than a terminal one, a bit like you've got with the Houston Texans, where it's like he really doesn't want to go back. I think he's just saying, hey, let's get this team sorted out. I want to compete. I want to win. We need to do things better. He is at fault for quite a lot of these sacks. He does need to get the ball out of his hands quicker, but at the same time, he is awesome.
Without a doubt. I mean, you look at the financial implications for not only the Seattle Seahawks, but any team that trades for him. It's going to take a lot in terms of draft compensation, and then you have to hope that your team is built ready to win. And when you look at the teams mentioned right there, the team that's built to win right now is the New Orleans Saints. The only problem with that is that they're $69.5 million over the salary cap right now. And Jack, you and I were talking about it before we hit the record button. They have to make a lot of moves, and honestly, I do not see how financially they could make it work, even if they wanted to, because they have so much tied up right now in terms of salaries. They have $253 million in total liabilities right now. And Drew Brees is still on the books because he hasn't officially retired. And even when he does, they're still not in a financial spot to where they could fit Russell Wilson into their salary cap. After this season, they definitely could. But in terms of 2021, I think it's damn near impossible for them to make this work.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be surprised if they do some weird stuff like Drew Brees might not retire till like the 1st of June to push some money into next year and do some bits like that. But just to get compliant, they've got to do some crazy stuff. And now, so we've said, hey, they've made, there's a lot of tough decisions in there, but they've made them all. One of these two players might have to be moved on in that, and that's Lattimore and Ramczyk. But if you were going to go after adding Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson's deal for the new team, we talked about it's the 39 million the Seahawks and he left with, but that new team's got a 19 million, 24 million, 27 million. No guaranteed money in there. There'd be guaranteed salary for the first year, and for the other years after that, its 5th day of the league year is 5 million. It's an awesome deal if you were getting that as the team adding Russell Wilson. But I would say for the Saints to be able to add him, you need to get rid of Lattimore, Ramczyk, and Taysom Hill in a trade. The reason you have to trade Taysom Hill is there's 7 million of guaranteed salary in there. And quite frankly, that's probably going to be an Osweiler style trade where you give up more than you get. So you might be looking at a 2nd round and Taysom Hill, and then you get back like a 6th, just to dump that salary. But I just can't realistically see a route where he ends up leaving this year. And in terms of going to the Saints, if they have to get rid of Latimer, Ramczyk, and literally everyone else on their roster, why would he want to be there? He's going to get more abuse there than he got the Seattle Seahawks. I would say if it was him and he was going to force a trade, the best team to probably go to would have actually been the Colts, because they actually have a really good history of great O-line play, a lot of depth. So that would have been the smart play if he wanted to get out. I don't think he wants to leave. I think that is true. He's frustrated. What quarterback that is not winning rings and stuff, or at least competing at the dance, isn't frustrated? But he's at least going to give him another year, and there's no way he goes for that. Could they eat $26 million? I think that's plausible.
Yeah, and if I'm Seattle right now, if I'm trying to fix the relationship, I'm calling Baltimore and asking them what the price is for Orlando Brown, because Dwayne Brown is aging. He's getting ready to enter his 14th season. They need a left tackle. Orlando Brown, wants to go be a left tackle after the way he performed last year when Ronnie Stanley went down. See what that'll work, and then try to hammer out an extension. You have to pay Jamal Adams as well, but those are moves that you can make for the future. If you're trying to keep Russell Wilson happy and in Seattle, go out and give him what he wants, and that's a better offensive line. And Orlando Brown seems to make the most sense, because he's still on his rookie deal, and as a second round or third round pick, I forget which round he was exactly in, a cheap deal to acquire. And you do have the financial flexibility to be able to keep him long term as well, and give him the money he would want as a starting left tackle in the league.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a really, really good shout, in all honesty, for them to go and make the move and trade for him. It's going to be an expensive deal, but they can maneuver around. The Seahawks, where are they based on the cap?
They're at $4.4 million according to over the cap right now.
Which they can easily free some stuff up and move some stuff into later years. So it's not hard. And Russell Wilson would probably help. He's got $19 million base salary that you can put into a signing bonus and move that. It's going to be dead money later on if they wanted to move him on, but in likelihood they're happy to keep him. So he'd probably say, hey, let's move some money into later years. Do the same with Bobby Wagner, same with Tyler Lockett. And then, let's free up that money and bring in a stud tackle. I think that'd do wonders. That's the sort of move that it keeps Russell Wilson happy. Probably drafting another wide receiver. Yeah, they've got Tyler Lockett. Yeah, they've got DK Metcalf. Yeah. But they need a third target. You ideally need 4 targets for your quarterback to go after. It puts stress on the defense, frees up space, and it means he can get the ball out quickly. Because quite frankly, if you put everyone over them 2 dudes, there's no one that great left out there. So 4 targets is what every offense should be looking for. You've got your running back, 4 receiving targets that aren't in the backfield. And that's got to be the goal. You've got to have 3 that are great and 1 that's at least good. I think add more weapons and go for it. At the end of the day, I really like what they're doing. Obviously, the Jamal Adams fiasco. What on earth they're doing. That's going to bite him in the arse. But you just got to roll with it. It's done now.
Yeah, definitely. The other QB news that came out yesterday, Deshaun Watson finally spoke to someone in the Texans organization. Obviously, this saga has been going on for a month. It's going to continue to stretch out by all accounts, but he finally met with new Texans head coach David Culley last week, according to ESPN. And in the meeting, although NFL Network says that they haven't met, they've just spoken via the phone or Zoom, Watson told them that he still wants to be traded, and he told Culley that he has no intentions for playing for Houston again. And Jack, when I look at this, and you hear all reports that the Texans aren't taking phone calls, so much so that, general managers or team executives from other teams are leaving voicemails with their offers for Deshaun Watson. And honestly, I don't know who is on it running the Texans at this point? Is it the new GM, Nick Caserio? Is it this team president or whatever he is, Jack Easterby, who from all accounts does not sound like a good guy to have in your organization? But the Texans aren't doing themselves any favors at this point. They're doing bad business, not for themselves, but also for Deshaun Watson. Like, if you have a disgruntled player, and I know he just signed a new contract, but you're not helping your organization out by any means by essentially holding Watson hostage at this point. And I feel like this is also slowing up business around the league because we've seen, the Sam Darnold rumors. We've seen, obviously the Russell Wilson rumors, but it feels like nothing will get done until this gets resolved. And who's when it's going to get resolved at this point?
Well, quite frankly, don't resolve it. I put some money on last night after the reports came out of the voicemails that, hey, I'm 3-1, plus 300, that, hey, he stays there. So I've bet now. I've gone on week 1. He will be on the Houston Texans roster. That's not saying, hey, he's going to play. Quite frankly, if he's sitting out, I don't really care. He's just going to be on there. And yeah, I've put it down because they're putting their foot down. They've made a financial commitment. And to be fair, if they want to trade him, they need to go ahead and get it done. For me, I only see one really, truly realistic place for him, and that's the Miami Dolphins. And if Miami don't want him, I can't see it. They've got the high pick. They've got the draft capital that they can do it. He can go there and win. I can't say the same about several of the other places that I feel that strongly about them. But no, it's a bizarre one because was that a reason why none of the decent head coaches want to go there? Is it just because it's a disaster anyway and it's a long rebuild? Personally, if I'm the Texans, I was getting rid of as quick as possible. I would have ideally done it by now. Are they thinking, hey, the market prices keep going up? Because to be fair, we don't know what that message is going through. If each week the value of these deals are going up until they eventually bite, then quite frankly, wait it out. They're under no obligation to keep going. There's talks that they might wait right until the draft, but in all honesty, I think they'll need to make a decision by free agency because that's going to impact, hey, do you want to join? Do you not? Other teams will be like, well, we missed out or we've spent that cap space. We can't fit this contract in without sort of letting someone go or freeing up that money because I don't know if you can add a contract to your books and then renegotiate a contract before it lands on your books. I don't know if that's allowed, which then could, cause problems.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you would think like the draft would be the first hard deadline. That's what some of the talking heads in the media here have said. But I agree with you. I feel like something should be done by free agency if the Texans are going to budge, especially because if they're interested in free agents, now they don't have a ton of cap flexibility. But if they're going to try to get guys in and guys are like, well, I'm not going there because, A, I don't know. No, it's not that I don't know. I don't know your plan, but I also don't like the way you're handling Deshaun Watson right now. Like if Watson's not happy and he's telling you right now that he has no intentions of playing for you, why don't you just move forward? Especially with the fact that your draft capital isn't the greatest right now, and you could really stock the treasure chest by trading Watson, getting multiple first-round picks, even getting a young quarterback. If they trade with the Jets, they could get Darnold. If they trade with the Dolphins, they can get Tua. They're not setting themselves up for long-term success if they want to get things back on track, because it seems like everything is just falling off the rails there in Houston. And I kind of feel bad for Nick Caserio and David Culley because they're in a position now where it's not going to end well for them, especially as a new GM and a new head coach. Like they are in a lose-lose situation at this point. And I just wonder, like, who is exactly running the show there? What is this Jack Easterby really doing? And what is he holding over Cal McNair to want to keep him around? Because it just seems like ever since he arrived there a couple years ago, things have gone way, way, way off the tracks in Houston.
It's bizarre. It is genuinely bizarre. And it's like, they went all in and it blew up in their face. Obviously the tons will move. Other stuff they were doing, they were spending a lot of cash. And yeah, it's just messy. And there's no sort of end in sight. Yes, you can keep Watson. It's probably a 2-year rebuild, and quite frankly, that's wasted a lot of that contract that you've signed for him. But at the same time, hey, trying to go out there and find another quarterback like him, it isn't easy. So, yeah, I think more needs to be done to try build those bridges. But will it ever happen? Yeah, I doubt it. Yeah, I don't think it can be repaired. I think he will end up forced his way out. Whether that's in the season, then our team's offering less. What's going on? Teams have waited too long. We saw it it was the Texans again with Clowney. They waited too long to flip him to the Seahawks when they should have dealt early. And I think that the peak is going to be around free agency time. And then it wouldn't surprise me if it starts going down in value. Maybe you see another little peak around draft, but I think post-draft, I can't see it. If he's still on the roster come the end of draft, or even draft the beginning of the first pick, it's game over for me. I think he stays.
All I got to say is thank you, Houston, for the 3rd-round pick y'all gave us for Duke Johnson, and they released Duke Johnson today. 3rd-round pick turned into Jacob Phillips. We'll see if he becomes a player at the linebacker position, but the fact that we got a 3 for Duke at the time, it seemed like a crazy move, a crazy win for us, and a really bad move for them because Duke really, he never lived up to the hype that, people thought, he might break out in Houston and become a extreme playmaker for them. Just never worked out. So thank you for the 3rd-round pick, Houston. We truly appreciated it. Jack, it's time for the mailbag. We did get a couple questions today, and if you guys ever want us to answer your questions on the show, don't be afraid to tweet them at me, Jack McCurry08, at Jack Duffin, or at the Dogland. The first one comes from Rover Joyce, Jack, and he says, why is there a need to extend Baker? With the franchise tag, we have 4 guaranteed years, including this year, the 5th-year option in 2022. And he goes, if after the first franchise tag, he is definitely the one, then you extend him. For me, I'm thinking right now with the cap being where it's at and what it's projected to be once the TV deal kicks in, it still makes sense to extend him now, even if you're not sure he's the guy, just because it's a more friendly deal for the team. And for him, obviously, in his representation, you get the guaranteed money now because in a couple years, if he flops, that guaranteed $100 million or whatever the guaranteed number would be, he might not see that. So it would make sense for him to get the deal done now and for the team to get the deal done now.
Yeah, so I've had a few people sort of ask this question in different ways recently, and it's actually I've just turned it into a full article, just because it's easier then, and I can just point to the article. But I've gone through it and really looked at it. And if you're signing the extension now, you're effectively committing about 24 million. And it's like, well, 24 million is a lot. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, when we start looking at, hey, let's wait, and if we sign that deal, say we let him play his 5th year, we put the tag on, and then we sign it. Say the salary cap's 2 years down the line then. So he's just played his 5th year out. Salary cap's now 250 million. He's played better than we expect. And rather than getting the deal that I think he'd get now, we're not quite pushing it up to Deshaun Watson level, but let's just push it up a little bit to where Russell Wilson is. That's say 186 million over 4 years. And you obviously avoided the risk of giving him that 24 million, but you've now got to pay him 186 million over 4. Compare that to if we do it now, I think it'd be 136 million over 4. And so that deal is starting on the same day, but by doing it now, that is 50 million saved. And that is the reason why I'm going, hey, are you going to gamble the 24 million that you might lose? And quite frankly, if we're moving on from Baker, there is big problems that we need to address. Like, where do we get Baker's replacement? It won't be like, oh yeah, we spent 24 million and we didn't get who we want. That's not going to be the biggest concern. It's going to be a lot worse than that. So quite frankly, yeah, do the deal if you can. Obviously, yeah, if it weren't the salary cap high year, then it would be 8 million more than we're talking now, but the lower salary cap gives us a little bit of extra wiggle room. So for me, sign it. And yeah, if we end up trading him and we're sat there with, well, we'll backload it. So it might be 32 million of dead cap and we get the third and the second that Wentz got. Probably more than that, then so be it. But, no, that'd be the route I would go. And it is quite a friendly deal to whatever team we give that deal to. And yeah, I would pay it. Obviously, if we didn't have COVID this year, I'd be a lot more 50-50, but I'm now sort of 60-40. Let's just pay the dude. And you would never go all the way with the franchise tax, because the other knock on is what it does to the dressing room, what it does to free agents and other players wanting to come in. If you're not committed to a quarterback, then their players don't want to come and play for you because they're like, they might move on from this dude in a year and then go into a rebuild. I don't want to be there. So there is that knock-on benefit. And quite frankly, with any other position, if you're not committing to someone, there might be a little bit of noise in the dressing room, but no one cares. Every other position is pretty irrelevant at the end of the day if you don't have a quarterback. Once you got a quarterback, every position on the roster is replaceable. It's one of them funny worlds where it's all about the quarterback. And yeah, let's give him a shot. Rather than give him 2 years guaranteed, let's make it 4 and we'll roll from there.
Absolutely. I think, like you mentioned how, you were talking about like the franchise tags, and I think of Dallas. Now, obviously the injury really forces Dallas's hand to pay Dak, but say they tagged him last year and then they go and tag him again this year. How do you think the rest of the locker room would feel about him not getting long-term money, but then you gave Zeke a crap ton of guaranteed money? You paid the offensive line, you paid Amari Cooper, you've paid guys on defense, but you don't pay the quarterback. And of course there is, some people say Dak's not that good to get all that money. There was a 4th round pick and has worked his tail off and is working his tail off to come back from this leg injury and has put up some ridiculous numbers, and you're not going to pay him, but you paid everybody else. Like, that's what it could do. Like, if you take the Browns, for instance, they've paid Myles Garrett. What if they paid Nick Chubb? What if they paid Denzel Ward, Wyatt Teller, but then they didn't pay Baker? But Baker is definitely one of the leaders of that locker room, and he's balled out, and he's gotten better. If you didn't pay him, you could be in the same situation Dallas would be in. And look at where Dallas hasn't won a Super Bowl in a quarter of a century. The Browns have never won a Super Bowl, but it seems like we're trending towards that direction where we could viably win one. I think Baker Mayfield's a big reason for it. You need to do right by him. You need to pay him before you pay everybody else, because the quarterback is the most important position. The Browns finally have that guy. You don't want to let him slip away.
Yeah, and I think Dallas was really smart not to pay him after the 3rd year with Dak, because he's amazing in year 1, and then he had 2 good years. And it was like, well, is he just a good quarterback that had 1 amazing rookie year, or is he that great quarterback? And then he had the great 4th year, and that was the moment they should have gone, yep, he's the guy, let's pay him. And that was the issue. It just rolled on too long. And one of the key things to remember with paying a dude or not and going on that 1-year model, unless you draft someone in sort of the 1st round as a quarterback, like even if it's sort of in the 2nd round like a Jalen Hurts, you've got no succession plan. There's no point going, we'll give him 1 more year and then we'll decide. If you've got no backup plan, then you end up paying the dude anyway. So you almost need to have that 2-year plan of going, hey, we'll give him his 5th year option. We're basically going to commit 29 million now to him over the next 2 years. Also, the other thing means you're not backloading that money. That is sat there. Whereas a deal can get that down to about 21 million. So it'd save you 8. But unless you're drafting someone in the 1st round and trading up, then you're going to keep him next year. So that takes off anyone going, don't give him the 5th year option. If you give him the 5th year option, and this one I don't mind of going, hey, we'll give him the 5th year option. We'll let him play next year without extending him, and then we'll decide and tie it down. Got no issue with that. It's a rational and sensible decision. But that's the year you've got to decide. Once you get into the 1-year model, you end up like Kirk Cousins, where if it's in the player's interest, go, no, I'm not signing it. not signing it, because if they push it all the way to free agency, they're going to make a boatload of money, and by hitting the 2 tags, it's going to help them on their way. And as we looked at, if he's talking about that like 180 odd million, why wouldn't you wait 2 years? You're safe as that quarterback. You're going to make loads of money, so you've got to have a succession plan once you get into that 1 year model. And that's a dangerous thing to do, because if you're saying to the locker room, look, we're close to extending this guy, oh yeah, but we're also going to draft this guy in the second round at quarterback, they're going to be like, oh, I thought we were trying to win with this dude. So that's the really, really tough thing. And you can get away with other positions. And if they wanted to go that route of, hey, Ward, Baker, Teller, all of these dudes, and not extend them this year, it wouldn't shock me. Obviously, it goes against their sort of idea of pay them early, etc. But they're all rational ones to sort of go, actually, we're not going to extend any of these dudes. I'd be shocked if they did that, but they're all realistic ones where you can go, no, we'll give them all an extra year. We've got health concerns. We'll Baker repeat. Running backs don't matter. They can push all of these deals to next year and actually not do any big deals. Luckily, people have said nasty things about the Browns owner, and I don't blame them for saying that. He's got a load of cash, and cash is king, because even though the salary cap's there, the actual cash you have to commit is massive. And when I'm writing about, hey, let's sign all these dudes to an extension, loads of that money has to get locked up in the league office and has to be set aside. And so teams do have cash budgets that they go, hey, you've got max 275 million I'm willing for you to spend this year. And don't look at it as just the salary cap. The salary cap's accounting and how the books get done. The actual cash is a whole nother game, because if you're setting aside potentially like 150 million just for these 4 extensions, then you've got to pay the rest of the roster. You're easy getting into the 250 million plus just in 1 year, and you need the old owner to stump that, which they're not all cash rich. You've got many owners that they own a valuable asset, but they don't have that much money sat in the bank.
Yeah, I mean, going back to like, you talk about how much cash you have in the bank. I know people will talk about the Cleveland Indians owner. The team's worth over $1 billion, but we have a $50 million payroll. I don't even want to get into that, because I understand how they operate, how they do business, how they build a roster. But, you know, people say, oh, well, Haslam's a great owner. The Cavs are great. The Cavs owner, Dan Gilbert's a great owner because they spend money. But spending money is great, but it's just one asset of building a franchise winning team. Which is why I say the Indians don't need to spend money, but it's nice that we have an owner like Jimmy Haslam with the Browns, where we have all this elite talent and he's willing to pay them to keep them around. And it's also why it's good that he's willing to admit his mistakes when he's failed in hiring the right people in terms of coaches and executives, to where he's now afraid to fire them, pay out their remaining guaranteed money, and trying to go and find the right people. I think he found them this time with Barry and Stefanski. We'll just see how it all plays out. Our next question is a cap-related question, Jack. It's from @Hoff0505. He did ask a couple questions, but this is the big one. How will the Browns' cap space number, how will the draft class affect that? Now, I looked into it on Over the Cap, and right now our total rookie pool for the 2021 draft as of right now is $7.8 million. So when I look at that, and, you know, of course we could trade draft picks and our rookie pool would then shrink, obviously. But the Browns essentially only have, when you take that into account, around $13 million in cap space right now, because I think they have to move that $7.8 million over technically right now to accommodate the rookie class as it's projected right now.
So the one thing to remember with this is there's 9 draft picks in there to get to the 7.85 million. Is for each one of these dudes you add, you're taking one person off the roster. And this is usually the accounting bit that people miss. They look at that total rookie pool and they go, wow, we've got to find this 7.85 million of space. We've got to cut dudes, keep this to one side. But if we just use the minimum, which is, I believe, 660,000, it's roughly around there. And obviously, it could depend. Hey, you're going to cut some slightly more expensive dudes to fill this space. But let's say these 9 players that we get rid of to bring these youngsters in are all worth 660,000. Times that by the 9 picks, because let's say all 9 of these make the roster. Well, that's 5.94 million. So effectively, we're looking at less than 2 million is the cost for all the rookies. So 1.9 million is the cost, because you're adding these 9 players, but you're taking 9 off of the roster. So yeah, a couple of million, easy. We can do that. Quite frankly, if you say you had a draft pick to cut Claiborne, all of your rookies, you're actually saving money because you've just moved on, it's 2.5, 3 million to bring him in. So, yeah, it's easy with this. If you said, hey, we're going to draft an edge in the first round, that is your entire draft class paid for if you're replacing Claiborne with him. So it's 2 million. It's pittance in the grand scheme of it. So don't worry about the big number. You've got to remember, every player you add, even like if you went out there and said, hey, we're going to spend $1 million on bringing Malcolm Smith back, that's not actually $1 million you're spending in terms of your cap space, because $1 million comes on, we drop a linebacker off the bottom, or whoever's the 51st player would now become the 52nd. That's then 660,000 gone. So you're actually only spending 340,000 of your actual salary cap space. So this stuff is what you just need to account, because it's one in, one out on that list. So no, nice and easy, nothing to worry about the rookie pool. Can't hear.
When NFL teams are like prioritizing their salary cap space, do they take the rookie pool money out, to your knowledge, or is that something they just worry about once the draft's over and they have to start signing the rookies?
So they'll account for it, because they need to be aware of it, but they would use sort of a number of, say, 2 million, and they would just go, hey, we need that set aside, and that money. So yeah, it's not too bad. It's pittance in the grand scheme. Obviously, if you're New Orleans Saints, you need to worry about 2 million and where that money comes from. But if you're the Browns and the vast majority of teams in this league who have got a little bit of rollover, then you're like, hey, it's 2 million. It's easy enough. And as I said, you're generally cutting dude. But to be fair, Claiborne's probably still on the roster for camp, and then you might let him go if you're not making that early decision. So it could be one where it's actually a further down the line saving. But yeah, the rookie pool, we're not going to be that worried about. Obviously, once you get those really higher picks, if you're, say, the Jags, that rookie pool is 13.8 million. They've got 11 picks, so slightly higher, but that's still not crazy money. And at the end of the day, if you're picking that high, your roster's probably cheap and you've got a load of cap space anyway. So, yeah, no pressure with the rookie pool, guys. We're all good.
So, to the shock of everyone, Jack got into a slight debate this morning over Jarvis Landry with someone on Twitter. And at the end of it, somebody, Hoff, came in with another question, and he said, it was he said, first of all, the topic was a good talking point, but it's more so an argument over replacement cost and value in terms of Landry. But he said, if you do get out of the contract, what can you get for it? And he goes, who would you replace the player with? And it says, what else does it get you? So, well, in terms of Landry, Jack, if we got rid of Jarvis Landry, what do you think, A, we could get for it in a potential trade? And then B, what would you do with, say, that $15 million if it became available? Like, how would you allocate it to the rest of the roster?
Yeah, so in terms of like a trade, personally, I don't think it's a tradable contract people would want, especially with the way the salary cap is. If we throw our mind back to when he was traded away from Miami, the only two teams that were serious were us and the Ravens. So, yeah, would 32 teams be happy to have Jarvis Landry, the player, on their roster? Yes. Were 32 teams willing to pay that money to Jarvis Landry? No, 30 teams were not interested in paying Jarvis Landry. The last time he was available, when obviously he was a lot younger, etc. So I think the proof's in the pudding that there's not that much interest going to be in him. If he was a free agent, yeah, people are going to work some deal. Obviously, I think that would be the route. And it comes down to, hey, what can you do with 15 million? Well, I would say JJ Watt and Rashard Higgins wouldn't be a bad shout of like, hey, and that's what it comes down to. People just look at individual players in silos. Yeah, that's good value, I'll pay that. That's good value, I'll pay that. That's good value, I'll pay that. Right. You've just spent 250 million. You've got 180 million salary cap. You need to start looking at these of A plus B versus C plus D. Which of those two do you want? And it's when I come back to stuff like Rashard Higgins plus Chubb versus Hunt plus Jarvis Landry. That's the sort of stuff that you realistically look at. You can't sort of silo single decisions off. And one thing, the chap that wasn't happy with my opinions, he wouldn't answer the question on the, hey, why did the morale and sort of dressing room go down the pan during the Freddie Kitchens year, if the Jarvis stuff, and his response was, I listen to Cleveland Browns daily and they tell me how great he is. I love Nathan Zagura, he does an amazing job, but he is a Browns employee. He is there. I wouldn't use the word propaganda, but it is that world. He works for the Browns and he's there to build the Browns. He can't sit there and go, oh, this player's not pulling their weight behind the scenes. I don't have faith in John Dorsey. Freddie Kitchens is out of his depth. You would never expect him to say that. Everyone's rational enough to know that's never going to happen. And I think that's one of these things that players, they watch something like Building the Browns and they take it as gospel. Obviously, yeah, if you see something in a show like Hard Knocks, it's a lot more fair because Hard Knocks want dirt on teams. They want stuff that's a bit controversial. But also stuff goes deeper. And we've had the debate before, hey, what do I want? I want production above everything. And it then comes down to fit. But it's what you lose, what you benefit. But yeah, if someone went, do you want Jarvis Landry or Rashard Higgins and JJ Watt? I think that's a really fair question. They're the same money because once you add the two players in, if you want to throw another edge in there, throw Claiborne in there. Would you rather have Claiborne? Is it an edge? Yeah, Claiborne and Jarvis Landry, or Rashard Higgins and JJ Watt? That's the debate, guys. That is a realistic question. You've got two edges. You've got two wide receivers. Who would you rather have? And for me, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it out like that, I'm taking Watt and Higgins, definitely. As much as I love Jarvis Landry, and you know this is a pro Jarvis Landry podcast, you can get me J.J. Watt and you can get me Higgins to stay here on a multi-year deal. That's what I'm taking. I mean, it's obvious. It's like the one, what was it? You said Landry and Hunt or Higgins and Chubb. Was that your others? Like, yeah, see, I'm taking Higgins and Chubb in that scenario. Like, taking the production over the
emotion.
Exactly. And that's exactly how it is at the end of the day. I mean, if you have to get rid of Landry in order to potentially get somebody else, like if that $15 million were to come up and we could get Marcus Williams, as much as I love Landry, you get Marcus Williams in the fold here at $14 or $15 million a year, and he helps that secondary and helps that defense overall, I would do it because we got guys on offense that can get the job done. And as much as good as Landry can be and is at times, you got to take production over promotion. That's all it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, would I pay him $12 million if that's what it was down to, and he was a slot and we ditched Njoku because we were going to go and move to a 11 personnel base playing 3 wide receivers 75% plus of the time? Would I do it? No, but I could at least see it. You can see what you're trying to do. You've got him out there on every snap. It would make realistic sense. But yeah, I think a really, really good example for fans when they go, yeah, I would pay that player that, is to come up with an equation of choose that other player, throw in, if it's a wide receiver, Rashard Higgins is your obvious name there, and then look for somewhere else on the roster and go, hey, as we drop JJ Watt and Claiborne, it's a good pairing that shows you that it's an A or B choice, and take it down to that. And then if you want to sit on the Jarvis Landry side, you can go, hey, Jarvis Landry and Claiborne, no, that's the side I value more than Higgins and JJ Watt. Perfectly fine. But that is a rational decision where you're choosing between A and B. When you go, I will pay the player that much, it doesn't matter, you're not looking at the options. And the options are the key thing here, because the salary cap is finite. There is so much money you can spend. If you're not spending that, if you spend over that, then your team's bust. You're not allowed, the league office will step in. So, just look for that slightly deeper part of it, and you'll really start enjoying and understanding what's going on in free agency, because fans like to just look at, I'll pay that player that player that, and it's like, well, what about the knock-on impacts? And no, it's good. We've got a smart front office here, so they're making smart decisions, and I love it.
Jack, as we wrap things up, do you want to plug any upcoming articles you got planned for thedogland.com?
So we've got the article that I mentioned about Baker Mayfield, and the three options of no fifth-year option, no extension, fifth-year option and extension. It was something I've been asked on, and hey, I'd delve into some more numbers, because I'd thrown some really loose stuff of like 2-3 million if you do this. Really put that out there. I'm going to work this weekend on a Richardson extension piece, because for me that's sort of the only other player that makes sense. Would they extend him? Who knows? That's for their decision. But what do the numbers look like if they want to extend him? And I think that's a fair question to ask. There's some other little bits working in the background, but nothing that close to being press and send yet. But as always, guys, if you've got an article that's banging around your head and you're like, I want to know a bit more about that, drop me a message. Just jump into the old DMs, Jack Duffin, Duffin, be like, hey, write a piece on this, or tweet at me and go, hey, what about this? It could just be a random question. Happy to answer it, guys. Throw more stuff my way. And as I forget the dude that tweeted about the Baker thing, that turned into a whole article. Did it while I was on my lunch break. Happy to throw that together and sort of give you the informed information of why they might do A, B, or C.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that. By the time this podcast is up, that article might be up as well. But it will definitely be up over the weekend, or for sure Monday morning. As for me, you guys can follow me on Twitter at JackMcCurry08. You can follow the Dogland at the Dogland on both Facebook and Twitter. And until next time, Browns fans, as always, as we get on out of here, go Browns.
Go Browns.